The airport was already alive with tension long before the boarding announcement echoed. Through Terminal D, rolling suitcases rattled across polished floors. Children tugged at tired parents, and overhead screens blinked with delays no one wanted to see. At gate D27, a black family stood slightly apart from the rest of the crowd. Not because they wanted to, but because space seemed to close in around them wherever they went. Marcus Hill held his boarding pass in one hand and his youngest daughter S-fingers in the other. Julia was 6, curious-eyed, wearing pink sneakers that lit up every time she walked. Beside Marcus stood his wife, Renee, calm on the surface, but alert in the way women learned to be after too many small humiliations that no one ever apologized for. Their teenage son, Jordan, leaned against a pillar with headphones around his neck, pretending not to notice how often people glanced at them and then looked away. They were early. Marcus always made sure of that. He believed punctuality gave you fewer excuses to be treated poorly, though experience had taught him that some people never needed excuses at all. "Daddy, are we flying the big plane?" Olia asked, bouncing slightly. Marcus smiled. "The biggest one, kiddo." The counter. The gate agent, a white woman in her early 40s, with sharp glasses and sharper impatience, was already visibly annoyed. Her name tag read Linda Parker. She had been dealing with complaints for over an hour, and it showed in the tightness of her mouth when Marcus stepped forward with his family as boarding for first and business class was announced. Linda's eyes flicked over them quickly. Too quickly. "Sir, economy boards later," she said without looking down at the passers. Marcus stayed polite. "We're in business class." Linda finally glanced at the boarding passes. Her lips pressed together. "These don't look right," she said. Renee tilted her head. "They were issued by the airline." Linda sighed loudly, the way people do when they want an audience. A few nearby passengers slowed down, pretending to check their phones while listening. "I'm going to need you to step aside," Linda said. "You're holding up the line." Marcus felt the familiar heat rise in his chest, but kept his voice steady. "Is there a problem with our tickets?" Linda looked at him now, really looked at him, from his jacket to his shoes to the carry-on bag Renee held. Her eyes lingered just long enough to make the judgment clear. "These seats are often upgraded accidentally," she said. "It happens." Jordan's jaw tightened. "That's not an accident." "Sir," Linda snapped, now addressing Jordan, "I'm speaking to your father." Renee stepped closer to Marcus. "You can scan them. You'll see they're valid." Linda didn't scan them. Instead, she raised her hand slightly and waved over a uniformed security officer standing nearby. "We may have an issue here," she said loudly. "Possible boarding pass fraud." The word hung in the air like smoke. Olia's grip tightened around Marcus's hand. "Daddy!" Marcus knelt slightly so he was eye level with her. "It's okay," he said softly, though his heart pounded. Other passengers were openly staring now. Some whispered. One woman shook her head as if the situation was already decided. The security officer, a tall man with a neutral expression, approached. "What seems to be the problem?" Linda gestured toward the family. "These passengers are trying to board early with invalid business class passes." The officer turned to Marcus. "Sir, can I see your tickets?" Marcus handed them over without hesitation. The officer scanned them with his device. The green light blinked. "They're valid," the officer said. Linda frowned. "That can't be right." "They are," the officer repeated. "Assigned business class seats." A pause followed. An uncomfortable one. Linda's cheeks flushed, but instead of apologizing, her tone hardened. "Even so, I'll need to reassign their seats. We're overbooked." Renee laughed softly, not out of humor, but disbelief. "So now they're valid, but you're still taking them away." "I don't have to explain airline policy to you," Linda said. Marcus stood up straight. Then explain it to me. Linda leaned closer to the counter microphone. Security, I may need assistance removing disruptive passengers. That was when something shifted. Marcus straightened his jacket, his calm suddenly carrying weight. Before you do that, he said evenly, you might want to call your supervisor. Linda scoffed. I don't need. Call, Marcus said again, quietly. Something in his voice made the security officer hesitate. He looked at Marcus, then at Linda. It wouldn't hurt, he said. Linda exhaled sharply and picked up the phone. Within minutes, a supervisor arrived, followed by another. Whispers grew louder. Phones came out. Jordan noticed someone recording. The supervisor, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, listened as Linda spoke rapidly, framing the story her way. When she finished, Marcus spoke calmly, clearly, without raising his voice once. The supervisor reviewed the tickets again. Then his expression changed when he saw the passenger name. Mr. Hill, he said slowly, would you mind coming with me for a moment? Renee's hand tightened on Marcus's arm. He gave her a reassuring look and followed. A few steps away, the supervisor lowered his voice. Are you? Marcus Hill from Horizon Logistics. Marcus nodded. The supervisor swallowed. The Horizon Logistics. Yes. The man's posture shifted instantly. Sir, I apologize for the inconvenience, Linda. Watching from the counter, frowned. What's going on? The supervisor turned back to the gate, his voice now formal. Linda, please step aside. What? She snapped. Why? Because, the supervisor said, Miss O'Hill's company handles a significant portion of this airline's international cargo contracts. The words hit like a shock wave. Whispers turned into audible gasps. Linda's face drained of color. That's not relevant. It is when you accuse a valued customer of fraud without cause, the supervisor replied. Marcus returned to his family. Olia looked up at him. Daddy, we in trouble? He smiled gently. No, sweetheart. The supervisor addressed the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, boarding will resume shortly. We apologize for the delay. He turned to Marcus. Your family will board now. Your seats will remain unchanged. Linda stood frozen, her authority evaporating in front of everyone she had tried to impress. As they boarded, Renee leaned toward Marcus. You didn't tell them who you were. Marcus shook his head. I never do. Jean glanced back at Linda, who couldn't meet his eyes. Funny how respect shows up late, he muttered. Thing inside the plane. The family settled into their seats. The cabin felt quieter, heavier, as if the air itself had learned something. Minutes later, a senior airline executive boarded, walking directly to Marcus's Hill. He said, extending his hand. I'm the regional director. I want to personally apologize. Marcus shook his hand. Apologies are easy, he said. Accountability is harder. The director nodded. It will be handled. From her seat near the front, Linda watched the exchange, her career unraveling in silence. As the plane took off, Aaliyah pressed her face to the window. Daddy, the plane's so high. Marcus looked at his family, then out at the sky. Yeah, he said softly. Sometimes you have to rise before people see you clearly. And for once, the injustice didn't fly away unnoticed. The airport had a way of pretending nothing ever happened. 10 minutes after the confrontation at Gate D27, the polished floors still gleamed, announcements still echoed politely, and passengers still shuffled forward as if a black family hadn't just been publicly accused of fraud for daring to exist in the wrong space. There, inside the aircraft, Marcus Hill sat upright in his wide business class seat, hands folded loosely, eyes forward. From the outside, he looked calm. Inside, memories pressed in, old ones, layered ones, the kind that never fully left, no matter how successful you became. Renee noticed the tightness in his jaw. She reached across the armrest and squeezed his hand gently. Marcus turned toward her and gave a small nod. He didn't trust himself to speak yet. Mr. Jordan leaned back, earbuds dangling unused around his neck. He stared at the cabin, watching people settle into their seats. Some avoided looking at them. Others glanced quickly, curiosity mixed with something like embarrassment. A middle-aged white man across the aisle cleared his throat as if he wanted to say something. Then didn't. Aaliyah swung her legs happily, already forgetting most of what had happened. Children had a way of moving forward faster than adults. But every now and then, she glanced at the aisle, as if checking to make sure no one was coming to take her away. A flight attendant approached with practiced cheer. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Hilkener. Get your family something to drink before takeoff." Her smile was warm, but Marcus could tell it wasn't accidental. Someone had said something. People always did after the fact. "Water is fine," Renee said before Marcus could answer. As the attendant walked away, Jordan leaned closer. "Dad," he said quietly, "why didn't you tell them who you were earlier?" Marcus exhaled slowly. "Because I shouldn't have to." Jordan nodded, but the anger still flickered in his eyes. "They wouldn't have done that to anyone else in this cabin." Marcus didn't argue. He didn't need to. Truth didn't require defense. A few rows ahead, Linda Parker sat stiffly in a jumpseat near the front, assigned there temporarily after being pulled from the gate. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap. She avoided looking back, but she could feel eyes on her. Not accusatory, not openly hostile, just aware. For the first time in years, Linda felt small. She replayed the moment over and over in her head. A bit the certainty she had felt when she spoke. The ease with which the word fraud had come out of her mouth. She had told herself it was policy, that it was experience, that she had a sense for these things. But now, sitting there as the aircraft doors closed, she couldn't ignore the pattern. This wasn't the first time a complaint had followed her. It was just the first time it had followed her all the way up the chain. The captain's voice came over the intercom, calm and authoritative, welcoming everyone aboard. As the plane taxied, Marcus finally allowed himself to lean back. The hum of the engines grounded him. Renee turned to him. "You okay?" He nodded. "I am. Just tired." She understood. Renee had watched him build everything from nothing. She had seen the doors closed softly in his face, the meetings that ended early, the praise given reluctantly. Success hadn't erased the weight. It had just changed the shape of it. After takeoff, the seatbelt sign blinked off. The cabin relaxed. Drinks were served. Conversations resumed. A woman across the aisle leaned forward hesitantly. "Excuse me," she said, her voice gentle. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry you had to go through that." Renee smiled politely. "Thank you." The woman nodded and leaned back, relief crossing her face as if she had done something important. Marcus wondered how many apologies like that were offered every day and how little they ever cost the people giving them. Midway through the flight, the regional director returned. He stood beside Marcus's seat, his expression serious. "Mr. Hill," he said quietly, "may I speak with you privately?" Marcus glanced at Renee. She nodded. He unbuckled and followed the director a few steps toward the galley. "I want you to know," the director said, lowering his voice, "that an internal investigation has already begun. Linda Parker has been placed on administrative leave pending review." Marcus looked at him steadily. "That's your process." "Yes," the director said, "but I also want to understand. From your perspective, what happened at the gate?" Marcus studied the man for a moment. "You already know what happened. The director hesitated. I know the facts. I don't know the impact. Marcus nodded slowly. Then listen carefully. Because this wasn't about one gate agent having a bad day. This was about how quickly my family was seen as a problem instead of passengers. About how easily authority turned into accusation. About how my children watched adults decide we didn't belong before checking anything at all. The director swallowed. I see. Marcus shook his head. No. You hear? V's, there's a difference. They stood in silence for a moment, the hum of the plane filling the space. I don't want compensation, Marcus continued. I don't want miles or vouchers. I want your staff trained to pause before they assume. I want accountability. That doesn't only activate when someone important is involved. The director nodded again, more firmly this time. Understood. When Marcus returned to his seat, Renee searched his face. What did he say? He listened, Marcus replied. We'll see if he remembers. Several rows ahead, Linda overheard fragments of the conversation. Not the words, but the tone. Respectful. Measured. Serious. She felt something twist uncomfortably in her chest. She thought back to her own upbringing. To the warnings she had absorbed without question. To the way certain images had been presented as cautionary tales. She had never thought of herself as cruel. She had thought of herself as careful. But careful for whom? When the plane landed, the mood was different. Passengers stood more quietly. Fewer impatient sighs. As the doors opened, the same flight attendant returned to Marcus's row. Mr. Hill, she said softly, thank you for flying with us. Marcus met her eyes. Thank you for doing your job with dignity. She smiled, genuinely this time. As the family stepped into the jet bridge, Jordan slowed his pace. He looked back once, just long enough to see Linda standing near the exit, her face pale, her posture uncertain. Their eyes met briefly. Linda opened her mouth as if to speak, then closed it. She nodded instead. A small, stiff gesture. Jordan turned away. In the terminal, the noise rushed back, phones ringing, announcements blaring, footsteps echoing. Life resumed its pace. But something had shifted, at least for a moment. Ollie tugged at Marcus's sleeve. Daddy. Yes, baby. Why was that lady mad at us? Marcus knelt beside her, choosing his words carefully. She wasn't mad at you. She made a mistake. Because we're brown. Ollie asked, innocent and devastating all at once. Renee inhaled sharply. Marcus held his daughter's hands. Some people think they know who you are before they ask. But that never makes them right. Aaliyah considered this, then smiled. I know who I am. Marcus smiled back. That's what matters. As they walked toward baggage claim, Renee slipped her arm through Marcus's. You did good, she said quietly. So did you, he replied. V behind them. In an office overlooking the gates, paperwork was already being filed. Emails were being sent. Meetings were being scheduled. The incident would be labeled, categorized, and eventually archived. But for the people who lived it, it wouldn't disappear, so easily. Marcus knew that tomorrow, or next week, or next year, something similar might happen again. Somewhere else. To someone else. Without cameras, without executives nearby. Without a powerful last name to interrupt the narrative. That knowledge sat heavy in his chest. Buzz. As he watched his family move forward, Jordan taller than he remembered, Renee steady and unbreakable. Ollie skipping ahead without fear, Marcus felt something else too. Resolve. Not to prove anything. Not to announce who he was. But to keep showing up, exactly as he was, in spaces that still hadn't learned how to see clearly. Because dignity didn't come from recognition. It came from refusing to shrink. And that, Marcus knew, was something no gate agent could ever take away.